Today on DMG, Jordan and I build this photo diorama in less than a day. Stay tuned to find out how we built it. Welcome back to another video. This time Jordan had quite the idea.
Yeah, so I had a thing that kept me up at night. I just was kind of thinking, when James is here, what's some project that we could do for the Dakota modelers group that we could get done pretty quick? And the idea that came to me was, well, let's just go and build a layout module in a day, photography module. So what I decided to do was I thought that we should go look around and just see some different spots around the area and see what we could model, what we could do, and something that could be done in a day, but was still a little bit challenging. We're not trying to build downtown Aberdeen down to the brick, but we're also not just gonna do plain track that does nothing. So what we ended up deciding on is what I got on this sign here, 0398. Now, what that is this is an old sign from the Milwaukee Road era that marks out one of their concrete overpasses. And just to the west of Andover here, there's multiple of these overpasses on the grade that's going up the hill to climb the Dakota Prairie. I think that it'd be a perfect design element, and it's something that could be done in a day to make these concrete overpasses.
Yep, and by getting this done in a day, we absolutely mean it.
Yes. We'll see what we can do.
So we're gonna make a module that is about 14.5 inches wide by 48 inches long. There's gonna be plenty of space to add our overpass, and it should be a nice lightweight photography module that we can use going forward in the future. Now it's about 9:30 in the morning, so we better get started.
Yeah, we gotta get moving.
All right, so cue the montage.
For the overpass, 3/16. Oh, 3 inches worth, right? No.
4.5.
Yes.
Reach in there and grab them.
Well, we have very, very brown. Also brown.
All right, so one of the first things we got to do is build up essentially what the bench work is going to look like. Now in our case, the bench work is simply going to be stacked foam and some hardboard. Now I have to be able to cut that hardboard in a relatively straight line. So I'm going to line that up. Get out the handy dandy pencil. We wanted to build a diorama that represented the area around Andover, South Dakota. Not only is it Jordan's home, but it is deep in the heart of the Milwaukee Road territory. The famed Pacific extension began right here on the open plains of the Midwest and ran through some of the most beautiful scenery in North America. That's when we came across one of 3 bridges built in the 1910s to allow cars and farm equipment to pass underneath the tracks. The rising grade climbs east out of the James Valley Basin toward the Coteau de Prairie, a hill country region that was untouched by advancing glaciers in the past. The main line was originally double-tracked, but today BNSF trains run on a single-track main while a utility road runs along the empty space beside the track. The steep embankment is held back with retaining walls and is tagged with graffiti by local artists. A modern signal has been installed beside the track. There are many details to be added as well, including signs, old railroad ties, fences, and Russian olive trees. Overall, we both agreed that this would be the perfect prototype for our diorama. Okay, now Jordan's just fitting on the inside of his bridge.
there. Sifted down real fine. We're just gonna get some of it under this underpass before we close it up.
So Jordan's done a great job getting the bridge ready, and the next step is going to be kind of the messiest. I am going to make my own style of ground goop, but it's a much lighter, simpler method than other recipes you've seen. This is a modification of one that I've seen online, but I can't remember where I saw it. It's essentially going to involve this insulation material. It's cellulose fiber, so basically just paper and other stuff, and that's going to be mixed with paint.
Cheapest you can find.
The cheapest you can find. It doesn't necessarily have to be the color of the dirt. That's just what we went with because there wasn't anything on the sale rack cheaper. So the recipe is as follows. I'm going to take out a chunk and I'm going to make this into a smallish batch. You try to tease out the fibers, or at least get them into bigger chunks. And then this is going to get completely saturated with paint. All right, and then so once I get the fiber teased out, gonna mix that with paint and set that down and to the side. Now, if you have a bigger mixture, you could get one of those, what do you call those things? It's like a
paint mixer.
Yeah,
for a
big
drill.
paint mixer attachment that you could throw on a drill. I got that back in Rapid City. But you can also use this. I'm gonna pretty much just mix it all together. And it looks nice and light and fluffy when it's all dry. As soon as you start mixing the paint in with it, it's gonna get into kind of like a really thick soup, almost like pancake batter. That is really the consistency that you want. So in this case, I'm gonna have to probably add a little bit more paint to get this to work.
It's pretty thick.
Yeah. And in fact, this whole batch might very well last most of the layout, or not layout, most of this module.
Yeah, I think we can probably get it knocked out with this.
Okay, so a little bit more.
This is the quick and easy way.
Yep, I don't have the exact ratios down yet.
You kind of just mix it until it feels right.
Mm-hmm. And you can mix it to different ratios depending on what you want to do with it. If you're going on really thin, flat terrain, you probably don't need a lot of fiber to it. In this case, we're going to still want it to be kind of thick because it's got to be able to hold a shape.
Right, we're kind of building up where the gaps and how where we couldn't get it to be shallow enough to be a true grade. That's what this is going to be finishing.
Now we're starting to look about right. You just make
Almost
sure.
looks like something you could eat.
Yeah, it's peanut butter, I guess.
Peanut butter.
So yeah, you could have this as a watery mixture, you could have it as a peanut butter mixture, and you could have anything in between. And the best part is, unlike the regular ground goop where you have to mix in plaster or grout, tile grout and stuff like that, there's a million recipes out there for it. They all tend to be pretty heavy. This though, that's only about 3-4 pounds at most. And as you're gonna see, this is gonna go quite a ways. I think that was the first cool breeze that we just had.
Yeah, well that means a storm's coming.
I don't see anything building yet.
It's
We got
still
some
pretty
time.
clear.
We got time. Okay, so anyway, now that I got this whole thing pretty well mixed, you can see, like I said, about the thickness of peanut butter for this batch. I could make it thinner, do pancake batter. I could make it thinner yet and make it kind of just paint with some bits in it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this will be a good consistency for what I want, because I can lift it up and see how it just doesn't really drip that much.
Mm-hmm. So what are you going to use to apply it?
I'm just going to use my stir stick. Now you can use all kinds of things. Heck, if you got the right kind of paint, I'd say even just use your hands if you wanted to.
I might do some of that when I'm not handling the camera.
You can see I can just layer that in, smooth it out. In this case, we're going to want a field there anyway, so we're going to want a bit of texture.
And even if it's flat, it just gives it that little bit that makes it a little more realistic.
It saves Jordan the step of having to go through and put a bunch of dirt on the ground right there. He'll still have some dirt to do, but it won't be a lot. Plus we can cover our nails.
Right.
Because we could get rid of the nails, but since we're on the time crunch, they're probably staying put.
Right, module in a day. You got to make some shortcuts.
Yep.
So when I weather track, I use it's pretty much the version that you've seen Pelle Solberg use on his layouts. I always do 2 stages where I'll go with gray as an undercoat and then I'll go with a really dark brown on top. So that's what I'm gonna do here. It's quick and it looks awesome. once again, you gotta get those rail heads.
Okay, well, at the moment we're coming up on about 10 hours on this project, so we've burnt through most of the daylight. The good news is all we really got left is scenery, so I think we're gonna make it. However, I think it's also gonna be tight. So keep up with us and we'll try to get this all done.
Alright. So my next little thing that I'm going to put on the layout, I already started this project a while ago. These are, I guess I'll call them my super duper trees. I really like super trees, but I always wanted that little bit of extra trunk at the bottom. So what I ended up doing was I took the material that you get in a super tree box and I glued it to these Woodland Scenics armatures. Like I said, I already did this part. But the next step in this process, which I'll use these trees on the layout, is I'm going to paint all of these gray. And these trees are going to be Russian olive trees. So they're a really unique kind of tree. You see them all over the Midwest and the West. So they take a little more attention, but they're definitely worth it. The result is great. There we go. Now they're ready for leaves. So I'm back in a different shirt. I just got matte medium all over my last one, but it's okay.
It's the same day. We didn't wait 24
right,
hours for
right.
the exact same light.
About 15 minutes have passed. So the next step on these trees is you take them, and I've got Mod Podge in here. You got to take them, and this isn't really ideal, but it works. We're in a time crunch, so whatever you can use will work. So there's a reason why you use Mod Podge for these, or any matte medium you can find, instead of using white glue. That's because the matte medium's a little bit thicker, so it bonds a little bit better to the tree, makes the leaves stick a little bit better. So that's really kind of the trick to getting good, thick leaves on your super trees. So the next thing that I'll do is I got a bag of super leaf and olive, and I just dip my tree right in there and just get it all swirled around so it's completely covered. Since it's in the bag, everything just goes right back in. And there you go, the first part of the tree is done. Now all it needs is a little bit more color, because these Russian olive trees are more of a jade green color than just a plain olive green. So we're going to change that, and then these trees will be ready to go on the diorama.
Okay, now for Jordan to get his signal wires in, he's got to drill a hole, so.
Yep. The signal won't be operational, but it will be there at least.
Yep. So I'm just going to do that and then try to focus it.
That was easy.
Went all the way through the bench work.
Yep. We weren't gonna do that. Not on top of the layout.
Okay, so I'll be doing the signal part. And a little trick I picked up over time is if you use a straw, you can get an idea as to either how deep the hole is, or it gives you a nice smooth surface from which you can put the signal. So in this case, I clipped it most of the way. Now I am going to trim about another quarter off. Stuff it in that hole. This will keep the wiring safe if I'm able to feed them all in.
That's the hardest part right
Yes,
there.
this is very narrow wire. This is probably like 32 gauge or something.
I should mention a shout out to We Honest Signals. They come from China, but they are a really high grade product. I've got quite a few of them on my layout, and I'm really happy with them. They're affordable, realistic signals.
Okay. All right, third time's the charm on this.
It's actually like the 7th time.
Well, third time for me.
Right.
So I'm just gonna put that in like so. And drop that whole signal down. And boom.
We have a signal.
Yes, we do. And all I gotta do is just tack it in there with a couple of nails. It'll be set. Okay, so here's what the finished signal looks like. I got a couple of toothpicks holding it in place until the glue dries. That might have to wait till overnight, but looks pretty damn good. Okay, so while Jordan is working on a lot of the scenery stuff, I got a little project of my own. I'm gonna make some fence posts. So, all that's required on that is just a little bit of spray paint, and then put some wires in later once it's all finished. I'll leave the wires for a different day though. I don't think we got enough string or monofilament anywhere. Okay, Jordan, walk us through the steps here.
Alright, so this is our make or break moment here. It's a bit humid. We've been fighting the humidity all day, but we're gonna see if we can still get the static grass to stand up, because once we get the static grass in, this thing's pretty much finished. So I'm just gonna go and just dump a little bit of white glue on there. Good and heavy, and then I can spread it around as needed. I've already got a mix ready to go in the applicator. I'm using the good old Knock Grassmaster. I think it's the 2.0. One of those tools that's just really good to have. Alright, so we got a good coating of glue. We got the static grass applicator staticking. Let's see what'll happen. Definitely humid. I've got one more trick up my sleeve though that might help here.
Good news is it looks like we're getting something out of it. It's not perfect by any means.
It's better than just good old sawdust. Actually, it's working quite well. I'm surprised.
Well, and when it starts laying down like that, that's not the end of the world either.
Right. We'll say it's a wet year.
Well, long grass on a slope like that will typically blow over in relation to the wind.
Right. So now I'm going to do, it's kind of the inverse of what a lot of people do. I'm going to just sprinkle some of this turf blend on, and it'll go down in between the grass, and it'll go and it'll find the little gaps, and it'll stick, and it'll give it just a little bit more texture so it isn't just a green carpet. I'll do the same thing with some of this earth blend. I'll give it a little bit of the yellows that you'll see in the summertime.
So this is one of our last steps for the evening, and that's to secure all of the ballast to the diorama. Jordan has already gone through and soaked the ballast and a mixture of dirt in alcohol, and I am coming up behind with the glue. The glue is approximately a 1-to-3 mix of white glue and water with dish soap added to break up the surface tension. It's your typical wet water mix. Anyway, the idea behind this is to make sure that it's completely soaked, and then we're going to go through and add a top coat onto at least these flat spots to kind of beef up our dirt a little bit. And that'll soak up any extra glue that's sitting around still. Now, how you actually apply the glue, ideally it's with a pipette. Woodland Scenics and a couple of other companies, they sell these sprayer bottles. You could use that for ground foam, but you don't want to use that for ballast because this is a very precise art form to get it looking just right.
Ballast is one of those things that I used to hate doing when I was younger, on account of the patience that was required to do so.
Yes, not only does it take patience, it also takes quite a lot of practice to get it looking decent. So I've trusted that Jordan has gotten enough rubbing alcohol down these ties that I can just run a line of glue right down the middle of them and they should be all right. The Woodland Scenics ballast is crushed up walnut shells, so it can and will absorb both water and glue if you give it time. Anyway, after running down a bead on the inside, I am going to continue going around the outside. And I'm just looking to see where it's having trouble filling in. If Jordan pans over to his left, he'll see the stuff that's been done even a few minutes earlier, and you can see a world of difference between what I've applied and how it soaks in. Now let's say for the sake of argument that you want to have a washout of some sort. Really easy to do. You just load up that pipette, pick a spot that's not too critical, and by the time that settles out, you're going to get a divot there in the ballast. Now to do a field like what I'm about to do, you're going to want to have pretty much just dirt or soil. Woodland Scenics makes soil for this purpose, or very fine turf, you can use either. The main idea is that you're going to want the field to be a dark, either near black color or a very dark brown color, depending on the soil type. So I've just wet this down with rubbing alcohol. I'm going to apply a layer of glue and then start adding the dirt itself, and you'll see the effects after that. Okay, well, would you say that you actually got it done in a day?
Of course I did. We both did.
It was 12:30.
Well, we did start at 9, so it was less than 24 hours.
I suppose.
I slept in that morning, and I definitely shouldn't have.
Yeah, so we worked into the wee hours of the morning to get it done.
It did take longer than 24 hours to finish itself, though.
Yes, the glue and paint was still quite wet.
It was about 95% East River humidity.
Yeah, West River, this would have probably been done a lot earlier.
But we got it done. It looks pretty good, and it's a damn close rendition of that overpass.
Mm-hmm. And about the only thing left to do is take this thing on a photo shoot. So I will have to do that as an addendum to our video.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll be able to see that last.
Yeah, we're in Hill City, so it's kind of hard to get pictures on the prairie like this layout's supposed to be. So it's got to make it back to Ulrich's first.
Yes. So I will take care of that as soon as I have a moment to do so. What would you say your favorite feature is on this thing?
Definitely the overpass with the signal. I think that really made it a prototype model. And I really wanted to get it right. I went and I measured how the concrete casings were, the angles. Roughly, they're not exact, but the angles. I went and I took pictures of the signage on the bridge, the graffiti that went under it, and I emulated all of that on this overpass. So if you go and you look at this one and you go hunt down the actual one by Andover, you'll find all the same graffiti, all the same signage around it, which makes it really fun.
And my favorite's going to be that field. I think I got to do one more layer of dirt on that at some point. Get some solid dark soil to put on top of that instead of whatever he had laying around. The Russian olives look fantastic. Plus this other tree here. Was that another Russian olive?
That is just a regular old super tree that I pulled out of my stash for this.
But we got flowers, we got static grass, we got dirt, ballast, we have little bushes here and there, a field. Really, there's a lot of small features, I would say, which is going to make this a fantastic thing to work off of in the future.
And it was all those little things that were kind of why we were working on this so late. Was I kept on having something that would come into my head. Oh, I got to do this yet. Oh, I got to do this yet. You know, right down to the board on the other side of the overpass. That was the last second thing, and I was very tired, very delirious. But I said, got to have that board. Got to have it on. Got to have it weathered. It's there.
Now, lessons learned and mistakes.
Yes. Okay, truth be told, this is not really a feasible thing to do in a day. We definitely got it finished in a day, but there were some major shortcuts we had to take to get it done in a day.
I think the caveat there is you can do something like this in a day, but it's not going to be up to the highest standard that you can achieve because everything on this was a rush job.
Right. We're not looking at Pella Solberg layout quality.
No.
But we're probably about 60% there.
Yeah. Well, and if I were to grade this whole thing, I would probably give it a good B. I mean, it's not a bad thing by any means. In fact, this is going to look fantastic in photographs.
I mean, if I saw a whole layout that had this level of work, which mine's kind of there, I would say this is a nice layout. The static grass is really nice. Static grass always looks good if you're doing the Midwest. And I think the super trees are also that thing that really makes it pop when you see those leaves. And when you take those pictures of these trees with the super leaf material on them, you're really going to see why these trees are so nice.
Yeah. Well, and let's see, other lessons to be learned. First, the adhesive really matters quite a bit.
At least if you're doing it quickly.
Because to be honest, we still got a lot of the nails and stuff under here that's holding this whole thing together. Technically, it's still curing.
Yep.
It might continue to cure here for another week.
Still held together by hopes and dreams.
Yes, hopes and dreams.
But it's better. It's definitely better than it was when we were trying to carve and install the bridge, and the foam was shifting at the same time. That was not a fun experience.
No, that probably delayed us a couple hours too.
Definitely did.
Controlling for humidity, I think, would be another thing to consider too.
Yes.
If you're right near the ocean, or if you happen to be trying to do this in the height of summer after ungodly rain for the previous month.
Well, that basically is what happened to us here.
Yeah. So the lesson to that is, I think, maybe do that in the winter when it's drier.
Yes, it could be done more reasonably in the winter. Or say if you want an excuse to visit a friend in Arizona or something and say, I'm going to just build a module in your living room. That's probably not a good way to do it.
No.
But, your paint and stuff will cure way faster.
But yeah, controlled environment would be nice. And of course, this thing isn't done. What I like is there's enough open space here that I can, over time, add things to it, subtract things as needed.
You can have wildlife, have crops in this field. I believe you wanted to have kind of a rotating variety of what goes in there.
Because the idea behind this is that we'll be able to photograph products in the future, or anything that we're reviewing. And we want it to be just generic enough that something's not going to look out of place. And I think that's been pretty well done. Even though this overpass is specific to that area.
Yep.
There's plenty of little underpasses all over the place.
Oh yeah, it's a generic overpass. But it also fits the Milwaukee castings, which is kind of nice.
One other error that I've been noticing is that as everything has dried out, the track's not quite secure in some of this. We're looking at about 8 inches or so on this side and about 6 inches or so on that side.
Yeah,
which I'll have to go back through. You just used fine buff ballast, right?
Yep.
So.
This is and that was a bit of a compromise. Technically, with this being a model of a modern BNSF mainline, we should be having, at least in South Dakota, they use granite ballast.
Yep.
That's what we should have on here. This ballast should be more of a pink color. But we were on a time and materials crunch, so we used what we had.
Yep. Because Andover is nowhere near a hobby shop.
Yes, that is a solid 2.5-hour drive at least.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I think we're going to wrap it up from there. And I'll just go take this out on a photo tour at some point. So,
all right, looking forward to seeing it finished up like this.
Make a few repairs. Do you feel like we should try this again with a actual Fremo module?
I'll need to take a break for a while. This was a taxing project. I'm still glad that we did it. It's proof that it can be done, but it's definitely intense. I wouldn't recommend it to everyone.
What if we got a couple more people to help? Or would that be too many cooks in the pot?
That's very possible.
All right, well, great job, Jordan. So, like I said, I'll do a little, I'll do a photography outing with this thing at some point with some equipment, and I can't wait to show it off.
It'd be nice to see.
Mm-hmm. After giving the diorama a few days to cure, I took it out to a couple of locations with a few locomotives and cars to test it out. This was the end result. We hope you enjoyed this video. If you would like to see more content like this, please consider subscribing to our channel. Thank you so much for your support. This is James Wilmus with Dakota Modelers Group signing off. Until next time, highball!